Hey, this is Andrew Brown from Exam Pro, and welcome to the CloudFormation Fall Along, where we're going to learn how to write a CloudFormation template and go ahead and deploy an EC2 instance, all using the power of infrastructure as code. Now, you're going to need a Cloud9 environment to do this. You could do this locally on your computer, but it's a lot easier to do everything through here. And if you wanted how to get started with Cloud9, we show it in multiple fall alongs, but in this particular case, we were showing how to set it up in the Elastic Beanstalk fall along. So I would recommend doing that first before doing this fall along here, or just figure out how to get a Cloud9 environment set up. But once you're in here and you have a Cloud9 environment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new directory to store this CloudFormation file. I'm going to call it mkdir cfn project to create that there. Then we're going to need a new file in there, so I'm just going to touch a new file. I'm going to call it template.yaml. It's important that you name it YAML instead of ML. It's just more consistent here. If you look up based on what is the best practice between the two, it just the whole community agrees to just do the full form here. So let's make our lives easier and just always do .yaml. Now that we have that file there, we can go ahead and open that up. So I'm just going to open that up. And of course, you could navigate here and click on it as well. And the first thing we need to specify is the template format version. So that is AWS template format version here, and that's going to be 2010-09-09. And this line pretty much says this is the version of CloudFormation we're going to be using. Everything else, like anything that's in this template, is affected by this version. This version obviously hasn't changed in a long time since it's nearly 10 years ago. Maybe at some point they will change it. The next thing we'll want to do is add a description. And we are going to use this two characters to allow us to do multi-line in YAML. And I'm just going to say this as infrastructure for study sync. We're not actually deploying the study sync application just because it's a little bit too much work. But, you know, I figured we will just name it that anyway. I changed this to 2 spaces. You can have 4 spaces, but generally 2 spaces is a lot easier to work with. So that's what I'm going to be doing through this. YAML is indent-based, and you have to be very careful with YAML files, because if you are not using spaces, soft tabs, and you use hard tabs, you might receive errors. So we have our format version, we have our description, and the first thing we need to do is specify an actual resource. I'm going to type resources, and then we'll name our resource web server, and then it's going to be a type of AWS EC2 instance. Now, I could wrap this in single quotations or double quotations, but YAML's pretty good about just turning this into a string, so I like to leave them naked, so to speak. In order to launch an EC2 instance, we're going to have to do a couple of things. But before we do that, I just want to show you how you would know what to fill in here if you had to read the docs. So I just type this here into the docs. And in CloudFormation, we have all these resources here. So if I really wanted to know EC2, I would go down to EC2, I would read it, and I'd say, okay, well, I want to launch an EC2 instance, and this would be the closest matching one. And that's how I would know how to add things to a CloudFormation template. And here they give you a full example in JSON and then in YAML. Obviously, YAML is a lot less verbose, and that's what people prefer to use. When AWS was first starting out with CloudFormation, it only had JSON, so YAML came later, and it is the preferred way of doing things. You can see all the formats, but the question is do we need to include all these attributes or properties? The answer is no, but you have to figure that out by looking at the actual properties here. It will either say required no, required yes, or required conditional. So the easiest way to find out what's required, we'll just do conditional. I don't think there's any yeses for EC2. And it says we need an image ID, and we're going to need a security group ID, which is conditional. Because I would think that if you didn't provide it, it would just automatically include the default. I think that's what it is, and that's what we'll probably do. We just won't include one at this point. So I think really we just need to include an instance ID and instance type. Actually, I don't think it says we have to include an instance type. I think that one is defaulted to something. It is defaulted to M1 small, and we're going to want a T2 micro because we want to save money. So let's make our way back over to here, and now that we've learned a little bit, what we're going to do is type in properties. And that's going to be all the properties for this resource that we're making. And so we saw instance type. I want this to be a T2 micro. Again, I could wrap this in single or double quotations. I just like to leave them naked. And the next thing we're going to need is the image ID. Now, the image ID is going to be the AMI ID. And AMI IDs vary based on region. So in order to get this, we're going to have to make our way over to the EC2 console. So type in EC2. And what we'll do is we'll pretend that we're launching a new instance. We're not going to launch an instance, but we'll just pretend as if we are. So I'll say launch instance here. And we will get the EC2 for North Virginia. Make sure you're in US East 1. This is going to be very problematic if you're not consistent about this. And this is what we want. They have two versions, x86 and 64-bit ARM. We want the x86 version. That's what we're used to using. ARM is very cool, but not for me today. So I'm going to copy that. And we are going to just paste that in. And that's all we need to launch an EC2 instance with CloudFormation. So in order to do this, we should probably put this in an S3 bucket. I'm just going to go quickly to the CloudFormation wizard to show you the steps that we're going to have to do and why we're going to put that in S3 in a second. So we'll go here and we have a lot of CloudFormation templates. I never created these. These were automatically created for me when we were doing other tutorials here, or I was running example applications. But go up to the top here and create a new stack, and we'll say new resources standard. And the idea is we're going to provide a template, and we can either provide one from S3 or we can upload our own template. This template is so darn small we could upload it, but I think it's good to get in the practice of putting it onto S3, because after a certain size, or like when a file gets a certain size and length, you have to store it in S3. And that's where you're going to want it to be, because a lot of services expect to find your CloudFormation templates there. So what we'll do is we will use the CLI to create a new bucket and store it there. So I'm going to type in AWS S3 API create bucket. We're going to type bucket here. And then I'm going to call it study sync Andrew. I think I already used that, so I can call it Andrew B. And we're going to say region US East 1. Now, be sure to customize this based on your name or some other value, because these bucket names are unique across all AWS. So now that I have that there, we'll hit enter. And if this is successful, it should give us the location back, which it did, and that's all great. And now that we have our bucket, what we can do is go ahead and copy this template file to S3. So I'm going to type in AWS S3. And notice there's S3 API and then S3. I don't know why it's like that, but that's just how it is. We'll do environment, CFN project, template YAML, and then we'll specify the S3 path here. So it's going to be study sync Andrew B. And then we will do template.yaml. Oops. Look at that. YML. I'm already messing things up here. I'll just do that twice there. And I don't care about that other one. We'll let it hang around. If I can remember the delete command, and I cannot, but we'll try it anyway. Maybe I can delete that one there. Is that it? Yes, it is. There we go. My memory is doing well. So we now have copied that to CloudFormation. And so if we go back to here, we can provide the URL. Now notice it says https:// and that is a different URL there. So if we go to S3 here, and we go and see our bucket, we have this one here. If we look at this item, it's going to show us this is the URL. So that's what the URL is. We'll make our way back to CloudFormation here. I'm going to paste that in there. We'll go ahead and hit click off. We could go to the viewer, the designer, to check that out, but I don't really care about it, so we'll just go next. We have no parameters. I'm going to name this study sync. We'll hit next. We will leave all of these alone. These all seem good to me. Yep, these are all great. And we'll go ahead and hit next. We'll go all the way down the bottom, and we will hit create stack. And it's going to have create in progress. And so now we just have to wait. We'll have to hit refresh here a bunch of times. This is going to take however long it takes to spin up an EC2 instance. If this fails, it will say rollback in progress. If we have a syntax error, it's totally possible we could have a very minute error that we had missed here because we were typing this all manually. And we'll just wait for this resource to complete. So I think the template must be valid because it looks like it's spinning up an EC2 instance. So it's on its way. So we just have to wait for this to create here. So I'll see you here in a little bit. Okay, so our EC2 instance is now running here. 2 out of 2 checks have passed. There's not much we can do with this instance because it doesn't have a web server installed. It doesn't have a security group that exposes port 80. It's using the default. So there's a lot of work we need to do here. Let's make our way back to CloudFormation and just take a look at the events. So here we can see the previous events, and now it says create complete. A lot of times when you're waiting around here, you have to hit the refresh button to see these changes. Sometimes they'll give you a little blue pill telling you there are available events. So, you know, just don't wait around and wait for things to happen. Click and see what's going on. So let's get a security group in here because that's the next thing that we're going to need. So what we'll do is we'll make our way back to Cloud 9 and we're going to want to add a security group. So if we wanted a security group, it should be under EC2. Because it is a EC2 service. And if I typed in security group here, well, there it is. And so this is going to tell us all the information we need to know on setting up a security group. So let's go back here and we're going to create a new resource. And I'm going to call this one security group. And then it's going to be type AWS EC2 security group. And the properties are going to be, it's going to need a VPC ID, which if we need that, we're going to have to provide our own variable for that. All right. We could just copy and paste ours in as we did with the image ID here, but I think it's time for us to start making this less brittle. We can give it a group description, which isn't a bad idea. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say open port 80. We want to set an ingress rule. That means inbound traffic. So you have ingress and what is the other one? Outgress. I know ingress is inbound. So, and what we'll do is hit enter there. IP protocol. Oops. And I'm going to type in TCP. And then we'll just align with the IP there from port 80. And then we have to port 80. And then we have CIDR IP colon. And in this case, I'll do double quotations. Just because it has like weird characters, I always think I have to do that here. It could be naked, I don't know. /0, and that says from anywhere on the internet, open up port 80, which is the common port for just plain old HTTP. I think that looks right. I'm just checking for spelling mistakes. So yeah, we're gonna have to deal with this. Also, I think while we're here, we might as well go ahead and turn this into a variable. So I'm going to call that image ID, and we're going to go and use some parameters. And so parameters is a great way for us to pass in variables at creation of a stack or at an update of a stack as well. So we defined one called image ID. We will default that to the value we just had there, which I no longer have. So I'm just going to have to go to launch EC2 instance here quickly and then grab it again. So that's a great way to default an option when we know we want something to be something. All right. It's good to give these a description because then when it prompts us, it's going to tell us what they are. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to say, am I to use EG? I'll just tell them what format it has to be. And this is going to be type string. Then the next one we need here is VPC ID. And we will give this a description, and we'll just say the VPC used by the SG. And just fix that spelling mistake there. We will call this type string. And we're not going to default this one. We'll pass this one in, and we're going to have to figure out what our VPC ID here in a moment. I'm just double checking this to make sure everything is A-OK. Looks good to me, but if we really want to know whether our template is good, we can use a tool called CFN lint, which is a node module. So I'm going to just go ahead and install that right now. And this is going to check to see if our application is good. -g means it's going to install it globally. And then what we'll do is I'm just going to cd into our directory, which we called CFN project here. And I'm just going to do CFN lint validate, and then provide the template name there. And if it's good, it will say it's good. If it's not, it will error out. And look, it's already complained. So clearly I've done something wrong. I'm not sure what the problem is. I think it's because it has an invalid type security group. Resource security group has an invalid type. So I've typed this wrong. It's supposed to have 2 colons here. I'll go ahead and save that. Now we'll validate it. I think we're getting closer. AWS EC2 security group. VPC ID is not a valid property. Okay. Oh, you know what? Lowercase here. Got to be really careful with these characters. Image ID, it's the same problem here. I capitalized the D on the end of it. If I can find it in here. Image ID, do you see it? As if you're going to tell me, right? Okay, we'll save that, and I'll just hit up here. And now the template's valid. So, I mean, it doesn't tell you exactly what the problem is. Like, I mean, you have to hunt it down there a bit and make sense of it. And you will have to double check the names of these properties. But, you know, that's all there is to it. So what we'll do is we will go back here. And now that that's done, I guess what we'll do is we will upload this to Cloud or back to S3. But let's automate that process because it's going to be tiresome to always type in the commands over and over again. So I'm going to touch a new file. I'm going to call this update.sh. So we're going to make a bash command here. We're going to chmod it, which changes it so that it can be executable. So if we didn't do that and we try to execute it, it's not actually a binary. It won't work. Or whatever you want to call it, just will not execute. Now that we have that file, I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and we are going to supply some information. We're going to tell it where to look for bash, first of all, which is always a great idea. It should already know what to do here, but this is just out of habit. I think you should always do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just type in our CLI or AWS CLI commands, and that's as simple as it is. So we'll type in template.yaml. We'll do s3:/ study sync. And I got 3 slashes in there. I'm sorry about that. It's a bit hard to see what I'm doing. So, and we'll type in andrewb/template.yaml. And that looks pretty good to me. We'll go back down here and now we'll just do /update.sh. You could do like, I think sh or whatever, or bash, but I always just like to use the period. That's the way you execute bash files on Linux. We'll hit enter. And that should work. Yep, it gave us output. It uploaded it. So it looks like everything's great. So what we can do is we can go back to CloudFormation and update the stack. So I'm going to go ahead and do update. We're going to replace the current template, and then we're going to provide that S3 URL again. I'm going to make my way over to CloudFront or S3 because I cannot remember that URL. I'm going to paste that on in there. We'll hit next. And it's now going to ask us for that VPC ID. So what we need to do is go grab it. So I think we have our EC2 open here, but we will, an easier way to do this would be to just go back to stacks here, click into this one, and we've checked the resources. We can click into the actual instance we're using and get the exact VPC that it's using. Because it could be, if you have multiple VPCs, it could be in a different one. It should be in the default one because we didn't specify anything. So we're going to just find it, and there it is. I'm just going to hit that little copy button. We'll make our way back to CloudFormation here, paste that in. Fingers crossed, and I think this will work. Nothing new here that we need to choose. We're going to hit next. We'll go all the way down to the bottom, hit update stack. And there it goes. And so we're just going to have to wait a little while here. Hopefully it does not roll back on us. But since we've linted fine, the only thing that could mess up is we got those parameters wrong. So, oh, and I think it's already done. I think it was really, really fast because it didn't have to create a new EC2 instance. It's just adding a security group. So let's go to our resources. And now we can see we have a security group and a web server. I'm just going to close that tab there. We'll leave that open. We'll close that. And we already have this open. We'll close that. So what I want to do is just check out the security group. And I just want to see if it actually set the port 80 to be open. If we go here to inbound, port 80 is open. That is what we want. Now the question is, if we check our web server, is the security group associated with it? And the answer is no, it's on the default because we actually never associated it in our Cloud9 template. So in here, yeah, we have this, we have that. We didn't put a property here for the security group. So that's what we're going to need to do next. Because we want to open up that port 80 when we install our Apache web server to view a web application. So what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and add that property. And I'm just stalling for time as I look for the line that I have to type in. There it is. So what we need to do is add security group. Security group IDs. Wouldn't it be so nice if this all auto-completed for me? It's like if it actually auto-completed all the documentation, that'd be sweet. And what we're going to use is get ATT. We're going to type in the security group here, security group dot group ID. And so this get attribs is a way of getting special properties on a resource here. And you're limited to what you can grab, but here we can grab the group ID, and that's what we need for this case. So I think that's all we need to do here right now. So let's go ahead and actually update this, our stack. And instead of going through here and clicking that and do all that work, let's update our script here so that we can just automate this further. So I'm going to go here and type in AWS CloudFormation. And it's going to then be update stack. We are going to provide our region, which is a great idea. We don't want that to default to anything funny. Put a / there. We'll provide the stack name, which should be called study sync. We will provide the template URL, which will be this link here. We are going to need to provide those parameters. Oops. Parameters. And we are going to supply the parameter key. It's parameter key and then parameter value. Very verbose. They just don't want to make anything easy for us. VPC ID, we want it to be lowercase. And then we'll do parameter, it's going to be value. And that's going to have to be what our VPC ID is. So we'll go back here and we will grab it. There it is. So we'll grab it from there. And we will paste that in there. That all looks good to me. I'm just going to double check more thoroughly here. It's very easy to make a mistake when you're typing all this stuff, but I'm pretty sure that's good. And so now that our script is updated, we can just do update.sh. Fingers crossed, hopefully it works. And we have an error. Oh, geez. So the template URL or template body must be specified. So we have it right there, but we forgot that /. This / just allows us, or backslash leans to the left, / leans to the right. But this allows us to make this multi-line. We can make this all a single line, but that's really messy. So that should fix that issue. We'll hit up here. Oh boy, VPC ID must have values. I guess I named it this. Yeah, I did. And I guess I could lowercase this because we should really be consistent here. But then I'll have to go down here and do that as well. Just to make our lives a bit easier. Again, that's a little mistake on my part. And actually, before we update this, we should really be linting this. So we'll do cfn lint validate template.yaml. Everything's good. I'm going to just change this to lowercase here. Everything looks good. We'll hit up. We're still having a hard time. Security group IDs. Security group IDs. It's weird that the linter didn't pick that up. Invalid template property, resource property, security group IDs. So I'm just going to search that there. Security group IDs. Oh, you know what? It's got to be indented. My bad. And it's surprising the linter didn't pick that up. So maybe there's another tool out there that's a little bit better at checking that stuff. And there we go. We know it's created because it gave us back a stack ID. If we go back to our CloudFormation template and give it a refresh, we can see that it is updating. If we want to see that status actually in Cloud9, we can do it pragmatically by typing AWS CloudFormation describe stacks stack-name study sync. And I would probably output this as a table because it's a lot of information. It doesn't exist. Well, I typed it wrong. And so there it is. There's all our information. We could also get this back as JSON if we just took that off there. It's showing us the status of it. So it's saying update in progress. So it's kind of like a cool way of checking that up. So update complete. So it's almost done. And we can also monitor it through here. It's got to choose what you want to do. It says delete in progress. I guess it's deleting the web server. And if it's deleting the web server, that means we're gonna have to wait a little bit here. So I will see you back here when this is 100% done. Okay, and so after a little wait here, everything's updated. Now it deleted the web server, and when I was building out this follow along, and I got to this stage, it didn't actually delete it. So clearly I have made a change, and maybe it's because I was fiddling with the names of the parameters there, or properties, that it forced a delete. So that's the thing with CloudFormation. It doesn't always delete resources, but in this case it did. And so I had to wait a little bit longer here. If we go over to EC2, we can see now that it's running. And let's say we wanted to actually go check out whether the security group is the correct one, and it is. But let's say we wanted to do this through Cloud9, or I should say the CLI here. And what we could do is get a list of the CloudFormation resources. So I'll do ableist CloudFormation list stack resources, stack name study sync. And here what we're getting is a list of resources, and in there we should have the security group, and that's going to give us that SG here, which is what we're going to need to check the next thing. And so we'll use AWS EC2 describe instances, instance IDs, and we will provide, actually we don't need the SG, we need the instance, because we want to see if the instance has the security group on it. That's what we're typing this out for. And I'm going to just output this as a table. You're kind of noticing a convention here: describe stacks, describe instances. That's why it's great to work with the CLI for a while. You just start to figure things out as you go. But you got to type it right if you want it to work. So we'll go back here, hit enter, and there it is. And so if we just look through this, there should be one called security groups. So we have the instance itself. Security group, where are you? There it is. And so we can see that it's attached. So there you go. So we definitely know that it's correctly attached, but if we just want to double check ourselves, we can go here and even check the inbound rule, and we see that port 80 is open. So now we have a web app with port 80 open, which is great. Now we just need to install our web server, and the way we can do that is through user data. Now, if you were launching an EC2 instance and you were just going through the steps here like I am, you'd get to this part, advanced details, and you'd provide the script into the user data, and that would initially set up whatever you want. That is one way to get that set up, and that's what we're going to do using CloudFormation. So we'll go back to our template here. I'm going to go to our template.yaml, and I'm just going to scroll on down here so I can see what I'm doing, and we're going to add another property to the web server, and we're going to call this one user data. And then we're going to add a function called base64, because this has to be base64. That's just how it is. And then we will use a sub on that because we need to substitute, well, we don't really need to substitute in the values, but in case we do, we should just do that out of habit. And this is the developer associate, so you don't need to know all these things in great detail. It's more so at the sysops and the DevOps. So that's why I'm kind of glazing over these things, because I'd rather you get more practical experience as to whether to actually know exactly how they work. And then we will do EC2 user, because it always starts you as the root user and you got to force it to switch to EC2 user. Then we'll do sudo yum install httpd. That is Apache. You think they just call it Apache, but they don't. And then we'll do start, which will start the service. And then we'll do sudo service http enable. So if that service is stopped for whatever reason, it will, if the server is restarted, it will continue running. I'm going to double check this to make sure this is right. User bin mvar bash looks good to me. I got that right. Yum y update, good. SSU EC2 user, great. Sudo yum install, that looks good to me. So everything is great. So that's all we need to do there. And while we're here, we might as well add some outputs. Outputs are going to make it easy for us to find values, so we don't have to click around everywhere. I'm going to make an output called public IP, because I want to get the IP of the web server, if you don't mind. And I believe that is typed correctly. I'm just going to double check here. Yeah, it looks good to me. So what we'll do now, I'm just going to scroll all the way up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to CFN, or we're going to lint that. I'm just going to hit up till I find that linter. Says everything is good, but we found out earlier that's not always the case. And then we'll do our update.sh. Fingers crossed. Yep, that's great. So now that has been uploaded to S3 and it's doing a stack update. We're going to make our way back here to CloudFormation. I'm going to do refresh, and we can see this update is in progress. So we're going to have to wait on that. And what we're looking for is that output of the actual IP address. I don't know if it's going to replace the server in this case. It probably won't. If it did, that'd be great. But it says update in progress. So it's not doing a delete in progress for the web server. But anyway, we'll check back here in a moment. So we'll see you soon. So our update is done here. And notice that it didn't do a delete in progress. It just updated it. So that's interesting. If we go to output here, now we actually have that IP address, and it's going to make our lives a lot easier because now we can just place that in there. But it's not working. So that's a bit of a shame, but I actually know why it's not working. It's because it didn't replace the instance. It didn't delete it and recreate it. It just updated it in place. And the reason why I know that is the core reason why this is not working is that when you use user data, this script only runs the absolutely first time an instance has been launched. And so the only way for this to ever run again would be if you destroyed it and recreated that instance entirely. If you restarted it, it wouldn't run it again. There are ways of adding things here so that it will trigger a restart, I guess, in some cases, or like replace the actual instance, but it didn't. So what we're going to have to do here in this case is just delete our entire stack. And that's a great chance to see how deletions work. So what we'll do is go ahead and delete it, hit delete stack. And what it's going to do, might have to go back a step here. It says delete in progress. It's better to see it on this level. We're going to see delete in progress. And deletes can actually fail and then roll back. But I don't think this one is going to. So what we'll do is we'll just wait a little while until this is done, and then we'll recreate our stack. And actually what we'll do while we're waiting here is we'll go to our update script, and we'll change this from update to create stack. And we're not going to run this until this one is done, because you can't have a stack with the same name. We could just name our new stack a different name, but I want to keep this consistent. Oh, and it looks like it's done, so that was pretty darn quick. So that means I don't have to go away, and we can just move on to the next step here. So we change this with create stack, and we will just do an update. And that is going to create our new stack here. We'll do a refresh, and there it goes. And we'll go to events. We'll just hit refresh here, and we'll have to wait a little bit because it's launching EC2 instance. So I'll see you then. Okay, and so we're back. I don't know if we're going to have the same IP address here. See, this one's 54.227.84.67. Nope, it's different. But we'll give that a go, and we'll see now if it actually works. And look at that, we got the test page up. So we fully automated something using CloudFormation. So that is pretty much the scope of what I wanted to show you here. And all we need to do now is just delete what we've created. So what we'll do is we'll do it through the CLI, because we already did it through here, so might as well learn how to do it through the CLI. And I'm going to take a guess, but I'm pretty sure it's AWS CloudFormation, delete stack, and then stack name, study sync. I tell you, the more you use the CLI, you just start guessing, and you're pretty much right. So I didn't get any output there. I'm going to go double check here, and I'm going to refresh, see what's going on. It says the delete is in progress, and there we go. So just make sure that this deletes, because sometimes deletes fail and they roll back, and you still have those resources around there. So if you don't want to be paying for something you don't need, just double check that there. But yeah, that's CloudFormation for you. So we're all done here.